Hello, that old man. Go off and leave your lovely wife behind. It appeared out of nowhere. My wife was staring down at four fat thugs who appeared to be salivating at her. By contrast, these young men were obviously drawn to my youthful-looking and diminutive wife, who you would never know is over 40. However, as I get closer to my late 50s, my appearance doesn't exactly match my wife's. I am mistaken for her dad sometimes too, which gives the impression that I'm a pretty ordinary-looking guy. It appears that I am acknowledged as her spouse here. Though considering the circumstances, it might be a little improper. I must admit that I'm a little relieved. My wife has likely been approached by guys in a flirting manner before, having been approached by them frequently since she was a little girl. I was temporarily caught in thought as I witnessed her being hit on in front of me, something I had never experienced before. Shouting at them would be disrespectful for a grown man, and ignoring them is unlikely to make them back off. One of the irate young men reached out for my wife as I stayed where I was told to go. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, pushing his hand away at that very time. The thugs all said, "Huh," almost simultaneously, but I unintentionally said the same thing. In retrospect, I see that this event served as the impetus for me to take back control of my life. Bob is my name. This year is my 57th birthday. I'm regarded as tall for my age group at 6'3". Even if I'm not particularly agile, I think I still have respectable muscles and dexterity. That being said, I'm not easily intimidated, even if some punk gets on my nerves. It is most likely because of my military service that I am still physically fit at my age. I was in the military when I was younger. It appears that I was once stationed in a nation ravaged by protracted civil conflict. There, citizens engaged in gunfights under the command of rebel fighters, putting even youngsters in danger every day. Although the villagers might not have felt comfortable trusting a stranger like me, I try my best to safeguard them. The explanation for the frequent apparently and the ambiguous information seems to be that I lost both my right arm and my memory there. I awoke to find myself in a hospital bed. The sight of my bandaged body hurt more when I started to recollect things than the ache itself. Even more painful than the suffering was losing my identity. I couldn't remember my name, but I could still remember the words. I could comprehend. I knew the names of the objects I saw, and I knew what was necessary to survive, but that was all. Me? Who am I? From where am I? All traces of my identification had vanished. Now, how am I meant to live? My wife Catherine was the only source of hope I had in the depths of my sorrow. She never missed a day of visiting me while I was in the hospital. She was always by my side, even though I wasn't married, and to be honest, didn't even know who she was. "Even if you forget about me, it would be great if we could make a lot of memories from now on," she said to me. We got married, and she acquired my last name once I was released from the hospital. I had no place in the military and had to be discharged because I had lost a portion of my body, and my memory had not returned. I was then paid a substantial sum of money. I could live off of it for the rest of my life if I was thrifty. It was enough money. However, I started looking for a job because I didn't want to do nothing. My dominant arm and memory were gone, so the occupations I could do were limited, and I got turned down for multiple jobs during interviews. I eventually got recruited by a tiny cleaning company. I was given assignments to clean offices and schools, locations where I could still function even without one arm. Though I couldn't recall my history, I had a happy life. Above all, my dear wife Catherine was waiting for me when I arrived home. I made the decision that this was my life going forward and that I would be happy to live out my days with Catherine. I retired at age 55 per her recommendation. Luckily, Catherine worked, and we had enough money saved up to live well in retirement. My intention was to work as long as possible, but I didn't want to worry Catherine, so I made the decision to retire. But again, I never really had any interests, so I had lots of spare time after I retired. My daily walks would qualify as a pastime if I had to choose one. I began going for nearly daily walks. That Monday morning was so lovely. I made Catherine's breakfast as usual and said goodbye. I got out of the house at about 9 in the morning, having done the laundry and some light cleaning. I suppose you could refer to me as a stay-at-home spouse because my primary responsibility is cleaning. Buying dinner at the grocery store was a regular stop on my way back from my morning stroll. There is a big housing complex on my walking route, and there is a big park in front of it without any playground equipment. I used to take breaks on the bench in the corner, which was my favorite place to be. The park felt homey in spite of its open layout, which contrasted with the European-style design of most American parks. I took a book out of my reusable bag and started reading the mystery novel I was halfway through while I sat on the bench. Nice weather, isn't it? The man, who I assumed to be somewhat older than myself, came over and said this kind of greeting while sporting a soft smile. Yes, the day is pleasant. While I don't have a lot of social anxiety, I am a bit of an introvert, so I frequently feel uncomfortable striking up a conversation with someone I just met. I apologized awkwardly, but the man gestured to the bench without seeming annoyed. Mind if I sit here? Oh, right. There is space for 2 people on this bench, but I was seated in the center with my luggage next to me, making it impossible for anyone else to sit there. I'm sorry, my bad. With haste, I stepped to the bench's edge and settled my eco-friendly bag on my lap. He sat next to me and said, "No worries, I just wanted to chat with you for a bit." Talk to me? It's never happened before. I don't think anyone else has ever enjoyed a chat with me, especially an elderly guy like myself, but Serene seems to appreciate my dull stories. Observing my perplexed expression, the man shook his head and attempted to clarify. I apologize for the abrupt approach. Jason is my name. Jason, why do you? Jason smiled gently and interrupted me before I could say anything more. I take it you visit this park daily. Yes, I agree. Don't you think it's fantastic that there isn't any play equipment here? Given there isn't any playground equipment, I think it's more a plaza than a park. But given it's called Johnson Park, that makes sense. I'm not the type to mince words. Would you be willing to give some supplements a try? Add-ons? Does this man also sell health products, I wonder? Did he simply happen to choose the middle-aged man who appears to be a sports enthusiast to pitch to? Since this is a sample, it is provided to you at no cost. Kindly give it a try if you'd like. Jason said calmly, yet he pressed the pill into my palm. Well, if it's a free sample, you should probably take it. I could always throw it away instead of taking it. It appears to be just like any other drug at first glance. Please accept it. I'd like to know what you think when I return. Just as I'm staring dumbfoundedly at Jason as he briskly walks off the bench, he looks back. See you again, Bob. I winced from a sharp headache, and I couldn't stop thinking about Jason's kind expression as he called my name. Did I really tell him my name? Wait. When I told Catherine the event that evening, she advised me to discard the supplement. You ought to alter your walking path as well. It's advisable to stay away from this person as he seems hazardous. Catherine makes a valid argument. Ultimately, taking drugs from anyone other than a pharmacy or doctor would only be the action of someone seriously lacking in judgment. Naturally, I'm not going to accept it, but I feel horrible if I did the next time I see him. Since I'm not very good at lying, I'd probably come out as biased. You're not required to meet him. He is unaware of your residence, correct? I'm curious. It seems he didn't recognize my name. He might be able to find my home if he is aware of my walking route and last name. Call the police if, by chance, you run into him. He is undoubtedly a villain. I sense something is off. Despite not being a fortune teller and without psychic abilities, Catherine's intuition frequently proves to be correct. I am aware that in her case, it should never be taken lightly, even when it is just a hunch. The following day, I followed her suggestion and altered my walking path. I even picked roads I had never driven on before, going past houses I had never seen. I realized how boring my regular walks had become because of the novelty of these strange sights. Despite having lived in this area for more than a decade, there is still a great deal I don't know. I was watching the cars go by from an overpass when I felt a nudge from behind. I nearly toppled down and frantically clutched onto the railing with my left arm. The individual who had attempted to push me was nowhere to be seen when I turned to look around. I stepped onto the pedestrian overpass, stepped over the railings, and sat down right away. I sat there stunned that I had fled, and waited for the shaking in my legs to stop. I had no doubt that I was being pursued. A few days later, I was shoved while waiting at the lights. Flower pots dropped from above, and there was a near fall from the overpass. Although I was able to avoid these threats, I couldn't forget that someone attempted to burn my house on fire. Fortunately, I saw it immediately, and it was only a small fire, but now there may be a risk to my wife as well. Thus, I grudgingly dialed the police. Although they can't guarantee safety around the clock, they promised to step up patrols and be prepared to act if something unusual occurs. It's kind of comforting to know that someone is watching. To be honest, as long as Catherine is secure, I won't mind. It is all that matters to me. And then there was calm for around a week. Perhaps they fled when they saw the cops stationed nearby. I have no problem with that. It doesn't matter if they are discovered or not as long as they remain hidden. Jason has not gotten in touch, and there have also been no incidences. We went back to our regular lives, and Catherine appeared relieved as well. Then suddenly it occurred to me, how about we go on a vacation? I could take a little longer off, she proposed. A travel abroad. Spain was Catherine's dream destination. Although we had spoken about visiting there for our honeymoon, we opted not to spend all of our cash at that time due to the unpredictability. We decided to take a trip to Savannah, Georgia instead. Catherine fell in love with Savannah on that trip, and she has gone back numerous times since. This time, I was shocked to learn it was an international excursion instead of my anticipated return to Savannah. It's all right. Come on, let's go. Our honeymoon was not permitted to be overseas. Actually, it has been nearly 10 years since our previous journey. Said I. We both had jobs and rarely got time off together, so it had been quite some time since our last real vacation. I smiled as I watched Catherine excitedly making plans to acquire new clothes and luggage for the trip, and I started to get excited about the international trip as well. I looked down at my missing right arm, missing from the elbow to the wrist. Where had I been assigned? I never asked pointed questions about that time because Catherine didn't enjoy talking about it. As a result, I'm not sure of the location or the circumstances. There had been fighting, but I didn't think it was Spain. Getting on an airplane could remind you of something. A ghostly ache shot through my missing arm, but I forced myself to ignore my pessimism. I started looking up tourist destinations in Spain online and making a list of the places I wanted to go. We followed through on our travel arrangements for the following month. We arrived at the airport 2 hours ahead of schedule and made plans to unwind in the lobby. Even though it wasn't my first time traveling overseas, I had forgotten all about the week-long stay, like it was the first time. Hoping not to get homesick, it would seem that the flight to Spain would take a while. Since I have trouble staying motionless for extended periods of time, the idea unnerved me. I said to Catherine, "I'll get us something to drink," and she said she wanted to explore the airport as we strolled. She was 40 years old, but her youthful zeal remained. I laughed and followed her around while she happily clasped my arms. "Hey, old man, why don't you leave that beautiful lady and go home?" Abruptly, a voice spoke up. Straight ahead of us was a bunch of men. Startled, I took a step back and dragged Catherine with me. She staggered and slid to her back. With haste, I knelt next to her, giving her back support, and asked the men, "What do you want?" looking up at them. "Did you miss that?" I guess elderly people have hearing problems, laughed loudly in jest. What made it so humorous? "We'll tend to her right now." "You can go, old man," one of the men said, shooing Catherine away with a motion akin to chasing away an animal. But Catherine pushed his hand away, peering down at the guys with a tone that was unusually acerbic. She replied, "Are you ready for what's coming, huh?" Not just the guys, but even myself was surprised. Is Catherine a martial arts practitioner that I'm unaware of? Even though we had been dating for a while, I had never heard of anything like this. However, perhaps she had acquired some knowledge during her childhood. Is this actually going to be a battle that happens right here? Not in a manner. She was really looking forward to the vacation, so she wouldn't ruin it. Furthermore, I find it impossible to envision her engaging in physical combat. Does that imply that I have to intervene? I was stunned when I fixed my gaze on Catherine's face, and she returned the stare. Her look conveyed a range of difficult-to-pin-down feelings. After a brief moment of eye contact, Catherine turned away and bit her lower lip. I was unable to fully comprehend Catherine's emotions, and strangely enough, the males did nothing either. Everyone in the area was feeling uncomfortable as the situation came to a standstill. I answered, "Sorry, I apologize." But then I said, "Why are you apologizing?" I tried to ask Catherine for explanation because I was confused, but it appeared like the men were getting impatient. Roughly grabbing my jacket collar, he said, "Hey, don't ignore us like that," and made me stand. His power, derived from what seemed to be a roughly 6'5" body, matched his intimidating appearance. Anyone might be knocked out with a single blow from those enormous arms. "Come at me, man." He let go of my collar and demanded a fair fight, which surprised me. How was he thinking? Catherine's intents are beyond my comprehension. I'm so confused that, to be honest, I don't feel like talking to anyone. I don't think I could survive a fight with a person that big. I am almost 60 years old, thus I am the most aware of how susceptible my body is to injury. The man did not hesitate to raise his fist upon noticing my concern. I flinched, expecting my left cheek to be broken, yet all around me seemed to be moving slowly. His right hand was approaching me slowly. My body automatically reacted when it saw his onslaught. My left hand struck him in the left chest with a counterpunch that felt almost like it was being sucked in. His eyelids were rolled back as he lay in front of me the following second. My pulse was racing. I made an effort to relax, yet oddly, my mind was very at ease. Everything seemed so far away, like though someone else had seized possession of my body and I wasn't myself. Somewhere a woman's cry resounded. I must have knocked the man down in front of her. That's when I was able to move once more. I yelled at the man who was still and frothing at the mouth. However, there was no reply, no respiration. I tried to feel his chest and wrist for a pulse, but there was none. I went white. "Hey, come on, breathe." I tried CPR as best I could recall, but it didn't work. The other men merely stood there in awe, not knowing what to do while the man refused to move. I kept trying, frantically, to bring him back to life. "Please, please, breathe." I started crying and was pulled away by Jason, the guy who had given me some supplements at the park the other day. "Excuse me," I said. He opened his suitcase and took out a machine. Perhaps it's some sort of AED. The man's body shook when he placed it on his chest and pressed a button. The man drooled and came back to life a few seconds later. The man spat out saliva and trembled, as if recognizing what had happened to him. The men looked at Jason and nodded before heading out. They appear to have known Jason. Jason looked at me and grinned, still frightened and puzzled. "Let's have a talk somewhere we can sit down and relax." I called off the vacation. Neither Catherine nor I were feeling like taking a vacation right now. I later gave the security officials who had come an explanation of the entire situation. Since I was the aggressor, they had an obligation to turn me over to the police. However, the man I had injured did not file a report. Jason testified on my behalf and proved it was self-defense. Therefore, there were no legal issues and I was released. Despite having a slim chance of making our flight, Catherine and I chose not to enjoy the vacation, so we canceled. We went home with Jason, who wanted to talk in a quiet place. Surprisingly, Catherine proposed that we have a conversation at home instead of the neighborhood cafe where I had intended to meet him. It was meant to be Jason and Catherine's first meeting. I questioned why Catherine would welcome such a man into our home, because she seemed to dislike Jason for giving me some suspicious medicines. Maybe this was her way of repaying him for standing up for me during the airport incident after all. When we arrived to the residence, we didn't waste any time in small talk and got right to the issue. So, where should we start? With his palms facing up, Jason shrugged while sipping the coffee that Catherine had made. To tell the truth, I have no idea what the hell is going on with me right now. Could you first tell me who you are, if that's okay? Jason closed his eyes and slowly nodded. Obviously. I am a physician by profession. As for our relationship, Bob, you were previously one of my patients, but I've retired from active practice. Client? Oh, I forgot who my doctor was. I suffered a serious injury when I was still in the service and was out of commission for a while. I started to say something about that moment in appreciation, looking down at where my right arm used to be, when Jason interrupted. Please don't thank me. I'm not worthy of it. What do you mean? Jason inhaled deeply, then released it gently as he raised his head to the ceiling. What has Catherine told you about your past? How was that? My past. The past I can't even begin to recall. I told Jason all I could recall, including the fact that I had no recollections of that period of time, and that I had once been a soldier who lost his right arm while performing his duty. Jason listened closely to my explanation, his eyes displaying a mixture of sorrow and sympathy. When I was done, all he replied was, I see. Should I tell them the truth? He questioned, turning to face Catherine. Catherine said nothing. Jason asked me to remain calm as he revealed the facts to me, taking her silence as permission. To begin with, Bob, you weren't your typical soldier. You served on a special operations squad. Hold on. Wait. What? You're claiming that I was on this special operations team and not in the military? Has Catherine been deceiving me then? To be honest, I couldn't care less about the specifics of my past, like if I had been a soldier or a member of a special team. However, it was shocking to learn that Catherine might have lied. Jason's statements felt validated by Catherine's silence. Please settle down. Catherine undoubtedly had good reasons for withholding some information from you. I take it that she wouldn't lie maliciously. Catherine said nothing, her expression expressionless. Let me explain, even if you might not get or accept this right away. You were assigned to a team tasked with ending a civil war in a certain nation. Even I don't know the precise details of who exactly commissioned this mission. Only the highest-ranking officials were aware of it. Regardless, you traveled to that nation, and the war was won as a result of your efforts. Like I was being praised with pride, I felt as like I was listening to someone else's heroic tale due to the shock of Catherine's apparent lie. I made an effort to pay attention, but what Jason said next astounded me. You were truly remarkable. 96 lives were lost by you alone, after all. My mouth hanging open must have made me look stupid. I couldn't tell if Catherine was crying because she saw my response. Naturally, you cannot be compared to some random criminals in these circumstances. Saying that you had already neutralized opposing forces with overwhelming power is probably more accurate. However, queries also surfaced at the same moment. Questions I put forward. Indeed, does peace make sense if it comes at the expense of other people's lives? Depriving others of their life. Yes, I had expected that to happen, especially since I thought I'd lost my arm in battle. But 96 people? I was shocked by the amount and couldn't contain my feelings. Bob, it's all behind you. The major point is still to be made, so don't feel bad about it just yet. Nothing could be more startling, in my opinion. My vision grew fuzzy, and my breathing became irregular. My brain seemed to be trying to black out in an attempt to escape reality. Whoosh! I gave myself a hard slap across both cheeks. Tell me. Kindly proceed. I will never flee. I'll confront my history. Someone from the top of the organization has ordered that you, poor, injured, and recuperating, be taken out. Why would you aim for my life? Individuality is not something a soldier should possess. That should apply to any unit. The unit as a whole may disintegrate if everyone begins to doubt their own conduct, as this will disrupt the chain of command. Because it's long, I won't get into the specifics. First of all, the reason you were hurt was because you were such a formidable presence in combat that the other opponents were unable to stand you. You lost your right arm when many enemy soldiers assaulted you due to a brief error in judgment. A pulse raced through my upper arm. The care provided was only temporary, as the local hospital lacked the necessary equipment. If you were just a dumb slob, you would have most likely been let to die. However, the group would not give up on their hero. You were brought to the United States right away while unconscious. That's how Jason and I met. I survived his invention of surgery, even if it did not return my amputated right arm. Had my recollection already faded by then, it seems? It's a reasonable assumption given the serious physical harm. My memory seems to have been erased by a powerful shock to my head. It makes sense, doesn't it? I was the one who took your memories, which is why you still had them. Jason, why? Why not? Jason hesitated before rubbing his forehead and said, I had no option. It appeared that you were making suggestions to your close pals about quitting the unit, and someone who overheard told the superiors about it. I'm not sure how exactly they decided how to handle you, but simply by making hints about leaving the unit, they most likely saw you as a possible risk. They most likely possessed a variety of secrets because it was a secret unit, and there may have been worries about a leak. However, there was a person who objected to your dismissal. He was the one above you. He pleaded for your life, citing your accomplishments and moral qualities. Naturally, he was rejected, but he didn't give up. Ultimately, he spared his own life to save yours. So you're saying he died in my place? Jason nodded profoundly, looking truly sorry. That man was... Jason turned to look at Catherine. Catherine's father. I got out of my chair without giving it any thought. Coffee spilled out of a tipped-over mug, but nobody appeared to mind. Catherine. It was mind-blowing, the thought that my beloved wife's father died because of me. Because of his offering, you were spared. However, it was more complicated than just releasing you. I was asked to remove all memories of you. However, it's not as simple as it seems to erase memories. I tried a number of different approaches before finding a medication that would cause amnesia, but it's definitely against the law. I was forced to drink it, which caused me to lose my memory. Your physical recovery went well. Saying smoothly in reference to memories can sound insensitive, yet we were able to remove them without any problems. You were reunited with Catherine, your former boss's daughter, and enjoyed a happy existence once you were deemed fit for discharge. Jason looked directly into my eyes as he closed the story with a strong sense of emotion. Now, why am I in front of you right now? It is to monitor your state. So you came to check if my memories are indeed gone. John gave a loud nod and clapped his hands. You pick things up quickly, precisely. However, isn't that incoherent? Why tell me everything about the past if your duty is to make sure I forget everything? Jason responded with a cheeky grin. You really pick things up quickly. It's easy. The group you were a part of wants your memories erased forever. Thus, all you have to do now is retake the amnesia medication. However, you would be suspicious if I instructed you to drink this out of the blue, wouldn't you? similar to how you threw away the vitamins I gave you before. I made the decision to be open and ask that you only drink it if you want to for that reason. It will be removed from your mind nevertheless. Why not use this space to reveal the organization's secrets? Thus, Bob, if you accept this, then everything will work out. Jason held up a single pill in his palm and winked. This is the memory-erasing drug. Indeed, compared to the last version you took, this one is safer. Proceed. Accept it. Jason pressed the tablet firmly into my palm. With a sigh and a phew, he finished his coffee. It must be dry in his throat from all the talking. This lifts a weight off my shoulders. I'll forget about Catherine if I take this. Furthermore, I might possibly lose my identity. I was so overcome with terror that I just gazed at the pill in my palm. Don't you want to enjoy a quiet retirement with your spouse? I mean, a wise guy like you knows what I mean, right? Is there nothing else I can do? Ultimately, for someone like myself who has taken so many lives, to now yearn for my own happiness is rather bold. Furthermore, losing my memories seems like a tiny price to pay if taking this medication guarantees that Catherine won't suffer any harm. However, I apologize. It's too much for me. Don't give up, Bob. Don't lose heart after all this. Living under continual observation all the time. I want to save my memories of Catherine, not lose them. Even when she lied, Catherine has always supported me without question. It is not significant. She did it, I think, for my benefit. Furthermore, I have no doubt that she is not the type to take advantage of others. Above all, she is not the type of lady who would accept saving herself at the cost of another's suffering. I trust her because of this. Even her falsehoods are forgiven. I'm not sure what this group has in store for us, but I'll do everything in my power to keep her safe, even with my aging body. In addition, I'm lacking an arm. Little that I can do. To be honest, I'm not sure if I can keep Catherine safe till the very end, but I can commit the rest of my life to her and live it with her. Whoa, choking. Then Jason started throwing up. Catherine was unfazed, but I was stunned. Is this the last one? I've kept my word, right? Jason scowled at Catherine, who returned his icy stare. How does your own medicine taste? Where did you get this? You are not need to know. Even if I told you, you would forget. Jason writhed in agony, cursing, for 10 or so minutes before collapsing. After a while, Catherine turned to face me and started crying. Before, she had been staring down at Jason. That's finished. Lastly, I'll divulge everything to you. All he wanted to do was try his medicine. Jason woke up an hour later and couldn't remember who he was. I brought him to the local police station and told them I had discovered an old man wandering around, leaving the rest to be handled by the police. Given the consequences of the medicine, I don't think he'll be retiring peacefully. Catherine was waiting for me when I got home, having cleared up Jason's mess. While much of what Jason claimed was accurate, there were some discrepancies. Apparently, her father had told her about my predicament. When I was injured and could no longer serve as a soldier, the organization first intended to use me in a support capacity. But John was against that. He wanted to use me to test his medicine. He suggested wiping my memory and then kicking me out of the company. Jason's perspective was taken into consideration since, it appears, he had family members in positions of authority inside the company. I was used as a test subject to demonstrate the efficacy of his medication. I took half of the medicine, having deftly crushed it in my hand before ingesting it. Catherine saw this and came over to me, weak and drooling, and took the half pill out of my fisted fist. I looked at Catherine as my consciousness began to fade. With steely eyes, she told me that she swore revenge upon Jason. It turned out that Jason's evil advice had also caused Catherine's father to pass away. Catherine's father was genuinely acting in the guise of taking responsibility for his workers despite the fact that he had opposed making me take the unknown medicine until the very end. Catherine harbored a deep-seated grudge against Jason between her father and myself. However, we later got married and led contented lives. Catherine thought about moving on and living in peace with each other. She secretly hoped that I would never lose my will to fight and my need for revenge. She desired for us to face and defeat our adversary as a team. However, she struggled within for a long time, not wanting to ruin my hands one more. Then the chance presented itself. Catherine achieved her purpose by keeping an eye out and inviting Jason to our house. I apologize for my lies. I know you're upset, but I was unable to forgive him, especially for Jason. If you wanted a divorce, I could understand, Catherine remarked, forcing a grin. It was obvious to everyone listening to her tremulous voice that she was trying to project bravery. Not me alone. I don't blame you for lying, Catherine, and I would have wanted to exact revenge on your father for standing up for me until the very end, I said to Catherine. I can't remember her father or the feelings of that period, though I do remember it in a vague way. Even so, I have to have thought that was completely inexcusable. She is not affiliated with the group, thus she is unaware of the specifics. Her father, it seems, just told her about my treatment. In my memories from the past, I could have lost my right arm, but I still have you in my left arm. For me, that is more than sufficient. I gave Catherine a strong hug with my lone arm, and felt her thin, frail body cry in my arms. She appeared so exposed as a result. Jason's predicament turned into a side note. Jason's true identity remained a secret, but when he was spotted roaming around clearly confused, it caused considerable public curiosity. I was the one who found him, and for some reason the media got my address. Still, I refused to be interviewed and remained silent. As the one who was involved, it is only normal for me to remain silent. However, I find myself wondering why Jason lost his entire sense of self after taking the half tablet, whereas I simply lost my memories. But thinking about it now is useless. My marriage to Catherine has remained happy and strong. We even took the much-awaited trip to Spain, enjoying our first international travel together. Catherine exclaimed with excitement that she'd hoped to travel to every nation in Europe. We'd have to live past 100 years old, even if we traveled to one nation annually. However, it seems worthwhile to live a long life simply to see her grin.